Everybody, welcome back. Skookum Sawmilling and Woodworks here, and I'll launch into a little shop project here. I need to get started on. I've been promising it for almost a year now. In previous videos, sawmill video, you saw where I had sawed up some big power poles. These weren't just telephone poles from a city street or anything. These are from big high voltage transfer lines up on a mountain, and so they were nice and free of debris and metal and nails and things like that. And they were about 60 years old, 60, 70 years old, and it was just time for them to be replaced. So the power company pulled them out and replaced them, and I salvaged them. The first 10 or 12 feet were pressure treated, obviously, or soaked in some sort of preservative, probably, I don't know, could have been creosote, I don't know. So we sawed that stuff off. I actually did sawmill it up into some boards to use for outdoor projects here and there or what have you. But the rest of it was all really nice, and they're Western red cedar. And I've used a ton of it so far for some projects up at my cabin. Did all the trim in my cabin from it. Built a loft railing and some doors and things like that, and a ladder out of it. And I've done a bunch of other projects, a little swim deck for our swimming pool. But I have a lot of it left. I'll show you here. And so we're getting ready to start on, my oldest daughter has a need for an interior door, and it's an arched doorway. So they want an arched barn type door, but I'm going to make it a little nicer than just a barn look. So we've got a bunch of, I've selected out a bunch of stuff here that I've got laid out that we're going to use, and we're going to build a door, an arch top door in kind of a barn style, but it'll be finished. And then we got to do the jamb, and we got to do casing to go around it. So it's going to be quite a project. Now, I've never built an interior door, except I did build one for the bathroom at our cabin, but I did build that in a shed style because I needed to match the original. Our cabin's about 100 years old, and the original doors in it were built out of Doug fir, but I used this cedar for this interior door to go on this little powder room at our cabin. So that's the only door I've ever built to speak of. So, but this one's going to be with knob and, like I say, casing. I got to work out how I'm going to do an arched casing, or arched jamb. I mean, I'm not even sure how I'm going to go about that yet. Whether I'll try to steam bend it. I'm not sure how well this cedar will steam bend, or I probably will end up laminating it over a form and do it that way. So it's gonna take a couple months, I think, but we're just gonna get started here shortly. So I just wanted to reintroduce myself. I'm Jerry, and this is Skookum Milling and Woodworks, and it's just a few days after Christmas right now, and it's bitter cold outside, so there's no real sawmilling going on or anything like that. So we're in the shop for the next couple of months here. Get this project. We just got done with a ton of Christmas projects. I'll try to post a couple of pictures of some of the projects my grandkids and I created out here in the shop for their parents and aunts and uncles and grandmas and stuff. So In any case, yeah, so that's what it's been. That's what it'll be for a little while, and then pretty soon we'll get back to some sawmilling. So hang tight, and I'm starting to work on a cut list now for this door and a layout, and I'll bring you back when we're moving. All right, so my daughter and son-in-law live about I don't know, 1,500 miles away. So they made a complete template of the door opening in the house that this door is going to go in, and so I have kind of converted that to a little template, at least for the arch top. The rest of it's pretty straightforward, so it's this arch top that has me concerned. But they made me a nice template, so we didn't have to do any guesswork at the arch. So that will be fine. This is where I was, sorry. This is where I was kind of sketching up some ideas for it. This is kind of where it started, just a solid door with no frame, but we didn't want to do just that. So we want to do it a frame and panel door. So we're going to have 4.5 inch rails and stiles, and then with a 3/4 inch inset panel made out of individual boards that will go in there, that will set into a dado all the way around. I'm going to tenon all the joints together, of course. Let me see if I can get to the second page here. Like I say, this was just a initial sketch up. This is where I got a little more particular about it with dimensions and what have you. So there will be some tenons, probably floating tenons that go right in there, and likewise down here at the bottom of the door, some floating tenons, nice wide ones. These are going to be, I think these stiles and rails are 4.5 inches wide. So I'll make like a 3-inch floating tenon to go in there, nice and substantial. We'll put that in, and like I say, the thing that concerns me is the door jamb, because it's a typical interior door. It's a 4 9/16 opening, so I've got to make this jamb that will fit that curve, match the door, and then of course there will be a door stop that I'll have to make to go in there too. That I'll probably be able to bend, but I think I'll have to resaw a bunch of this cedar into some 1/8 inch strips or something, and then relaminate them around a form to match this opening, and get that. The rest of the jambs are straight away. That's no big deal. Those will be pretty simple. And then casing will be another story. Now casing, I think, will probably just be, I'll probably just laminate some, or glue up some pieces and then bandsaw the casing out of a piece, rather than, I won't need to bend that stuff or anything. So that's what we're going to do. Door really, I think, should be pretty straightforward. I've made a pattern on some masonite, and it's kind of faint, but I just trace it on there. So I'm going to cut that out and refine that, and then we'll use that to cut the you can see I kind of already have it roughly traced on there, to cut that arched rail out. And yeah, we'll see how things look from there. Then I've got to work my way through this pile of lumber and get the pieces that I need, get nice select stuff out of it as best I can, in order to complete this project. So we'll get started here in a minute. Okay, so here's our roughed out arch, the two stiles, and now I've got to do that bottom rail, which I don't have anything wide enough, so I gotta laminate these two up. So we'll do that right now, put those in the glue blocks, and then after it dries, we'll cut it down to size. And then that will be all the pieces for the door frame. Just slather some glue on here, this regular old Type Bond 3, and should be more than adequate. It's just an interior door, so we're not worried about any weather resistant adhesive or anything. But I do want to make sure I get plenty of adhesive in there. So. Okay. Right. Okay, let's clean that up a little bit. all these components, these 8/4 pieces, are going to get a light pass through the planer, so that'll take care of that glue. Yeah, we got a little bit to give on there, about a 30-second, so we'll run those through the planer after everything's done here and before assembly. So all right, we'll let that cook probably overnight, and in the meantime we can get to work on choosing the right boards to use for the infill panel. Okay, I think this is what I've landed on for the proper mix of the boards. So it's from these chalk marks to here for this panel. So this part is waste, that's waste. From here down on these 3 boards will be waste. So I kind of like that combination right there. Now there's some defects that I'll have to deal with. A couple of knot holes that go clear through. We'll fill those with some epoxy. I think this one will get pretty much eliminated when I rip them to the right lengths, or right widths, because I've got to be 22 and I forget what it was, 7/8 I think, and we've got 26 inches, 26 and a half inches, so we got several inches to take off. So we'll eliminate some of those, and yeah, I think that's the right combination. They all have a pretty similar tone to them. This one is a little darker, but I think it'll be okay. So yeah, so I'll cut those all down to a rough length. I'm cutting them about 2 inches longer than they need to be so that I can adjust. Then I'll run them through the joiner. We'll rip the other side off on the table saw so we get them nice and parallel, and I'll look at them. I think they're okay thickness wise, so we shouldn't have to worry about running the whole thing through a planer. So yeah, so we'll get those. Okay, so this is what I landed on for the combination of boards. Anyway, we got it all glued up. It's all in the clamps. I think that's going to be nice looking. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. That'll be a nice match, nice combination. So we'll let that cook overnight in the clamps and come back out tomorrow. We got to machine up our this is the bottom rail. We got to it's going to be 6 inches, so I had to laminate it a couple up. We'll clean that up. We'll finish cleaning up the stiles and that top rail, and we got to cut a groove in everything to accept this panel. So yeah, a lot of work tomorrow, so we'll see what we can get done. Okay, need to fair this out a little bit. Adjust that arc. It's got a few dips in it from the bandsaw. You just take a little bit of paper and apply it to a flexible strip here, and then just work that back and forth and get those taken care of. That's pretty good. Got a couple little spots that we'll take care of when we do the final sanding of the door, but that's a pretty good smooth arc now, so I think that'll work. Okay, time now to work on the panel. Got some sanding to do on it and what have you. So the first thing we do is put down a pad underneath this. Underneath it, and this is just a thin foam pad. You can see I've used it for a while. I use it to hold pieces when I'm running the router around them. I use it for a sanding pad. So we got to decide which side. Well, both sides are going to be seen since it is an interior door, so I guess it doesn't really matter now that I think about it. So I guess we'll just lay it down here. We got to get some sander. We'll use the 6-inch sander. It's kind of the broadest, and okay, so now we need to knock these glue lines down. Okay, it's looking pretty good. We got, like I say, we'll have to finish it up. I still got some, I don't know if you can see those very well, just some glue squeeze out there that I should have cleaned up. But it's all coming out pretty good. So this will be pretty nice. So we'll flip it over and do the other side and just get this close. Now I still got to cut it to the proper width and length, and then once that's done, then we'll do the final sanding on it before we do the assembly. So yeah, so it's looking pretty good. So I'll spare you the boring sanding footage and come back to you when we're done. Okay, we're going to attach the rails to the stiles with dowels. I'm going to use half-inch dowels here that will they'll go down 1.5 inches into the rail and 1.5 inches into the stile. We'll put 2 of them per. So we've got our doweling jig out here, and gonna drill a series of holes. So the doweling jig just centers, make sure that the hole is centered in the board. It's got a mechanism here where it self-centers when you tighten it up. There's a little line in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. A little line in there to line up with the pencil mark that I've made on the board. And so you just get it in there, get it on there. You line up your center lines. You clamp it down. I went ahead, of course, and pre-marked all of them where I want the holes. And then we just take a 1/2 inch bit and bore down in. I've marked the depth on the bit. Just like so. And yeah, and you get a nice clean hole in there and perfectly centered, and should be perfectly straight as well. And then you do the same thing on the end of the stile. So there'll be a hole there and a hole there. We'll put our 3-inch dowels. I got to cut all those dowels. We'll put those in, glue them up, slip it all together, and that'll be that. But before we do that, of course, I'm just prepping all of this, because after we get done with the dowel holes, then the next thing that has to happen is we've got to cut a groove. In the picture here, I got to cut a groove, a 3/4 inch groove on the inside of all these components to accept the middle, the panel. So it'll be 3/4 of an inch wide and 3/4 of an inch deep all the way around. So then the way we do it is we'll assemble 3 components, slide the panel up in, and then put the last one on. The panel will get no glue, so it can just float in there, so it can allow for a little bit of expansion and contraction. There shouldn't be much, but there could be, and so that will allow for that. So I'll finish drilling all these holes, and we'll keep moving along. All right, so all the holes are drilled, dowels are all cut. Oh, that one's a little tight. Some of these are a bit on the tight side. I'll probably sand them a little bit before final assembly. But yeah, so let's just see if everything goes together okay here. Let's see, get these dowels lined up, get them started here. There we go, and there we go. All right, that's a good fit. Yep, nice fit there. Let's go down to the other end and the arch top here. Let's get it in there. Oh yeah, nice fit and a nice fit. I hope. There we go. Snaps right together. Perfect. All right, let's get a measurement. Our overall slab length needs to be 79 5/8. So I think that's about the center. Could be off a little bit. And yeah, we're 79 5/8 strong, almost 11/16. So perfect. By the time I sand a little bit more on that upper arch, we should be perfect height. So that's our frame. And yeah, so now it's time to cut the grooves. So like I say, I got to cut a groove. It's called a dado. I think I'm going to cut it with I have a dadoing set in my other table saw on the other side. I'll set that up for the proper width, and we'll cut those grooves in these pieces, and yeah, and then we'll be ready to size the panel and cut it, and we'll be good to go. All right, in my shop here, I have the luxury of having 2 table saws, and I have them coupled together. This was my original table saw, a good old workhorse Craftsman contractor saw. Bought that in like 1989 or 1990 or something. Used that for many years, and eventually ended up with a 3 horsepower Grizzly cabinet saw. Huge improvement over that. But what I decided to do, instead of just selling this one, since I had the luxury of having the room in here to do it, I kept it and I coupled them up, and I made a centerpiece here, and this is my router table. So I've got a 3 horse Makita router underneath there, and so that's what I use for a router table. I can use the fence for either the saw, the router, or the dado saw. So this saw has become a dedicated dado center. So for those of you that don't know what a dado set is, it's a set of cutters. It's got like kind of like a saw blade on the inside and the outside, or on the 2 outsides, and on the inside it's got additional chippers that you put in there, and you stack them up to get the width of the groove that you want to cut. So right now it looks like I have about a 1/2 inch set up. I don't even remember what I was using that for. But we've got to add chippers for that, and so I've got spare ones here in varying thicknesses, and so I'll be taking it apart and dialing it all in with these. You can see the chipper on it, so get the right combination in there, because there's thin ones and there's thick ones, and there's even some little shims that I use to really dial it in if I need something really precise and really tight or what have you. So we'll be putting those on and run a few test scraps to make sure we get just the right fit, and then we'll groove all 4 of those pieces except this one. I can't groove this on there, so that I'm gonna have to figure out how to do. I might use my router and with a slot cutting bit possibly, or I might use my dedicated hollow chisel mortiser and just cut a series of cuts and then chisel them out. So anyway, so we'll get set up for that. All right, let's change that dado blade out. So this is the wrench for that saw. We put a board in here to just hold tension on it. Put this wrench on, turn the nut loose. Unscrew the nut, take off the washer, take off one blade. We've got a large and a thin one in here. I'm gonna add more, I think. I actually have a chart that shows if we need a 3/4 inch, it takes the 2 outside blades and 1, 2, 3 of the thicker chippers. So there's one on there now. Let's put one more on and one more, and you kind of stagger these and make sure that you don't have 2 teeth lined up against each other anywhere, and then put the other blade back on, and then let's just kind of see if we can get a measurement here. Got a little steel rule. Let's just see where we're at right now. If I hold that all flush up there, yeah, we're shy yet. So I think add one more of the bigger ones. Okay, and you just kind of spread them out to balance them out. So they're somewhat balanced on the arbor in the saw. And let's see what that gives us here. Let's see how, just for measurement's sake, I'll run them together. Yeah, that's right at 3/4. So we'll stagger these back apart here. Go ahead and put everything. This is so wide, I'm not going to put the washer back on. Just put the nut on. Quick tighten. Make sure nothing's bound up. We don't have any teeth bumping into each other or anything. No, everything looks good. Okay, now our insert back in. Bring the fence over, and we're going to be centering that. So those are 1 3/8, and we want that dado centered in there. So 1/2 inch and 3/8 is what? 1/2 inch and 3/16, so 7 inch and 3/8, half, which is 8, so 11/16 or so to the center. Somewhere in there, we'll just kind of get it started, and got to have a jumping off place somewhere here. So, and then we'll take a piece of scrap that is the same thickness as our material that we're actually going to groove, and we'll see what we get here. I don't know if I dare do this with you on here or not. Well, we got to adjust the depth too, so we got to bring it up. We're shooting for a 3/4 inch depth. So let's go ahead and make a test cut here. Let's see what we end up with there. And it looks like we're pretty well centered. Do a quick measurement off camera here. Yeah, we're about 5/16. Yeah, I like it. We're 5/16. We're right on 3/4 inch wide, and we're just about, we're like 13/16 deep. So the depth is good. The width, I think we've got to adjust. I think it's got to be a little wider. Let's go over here and try it on the panel. See if we can get it. See if it'll slide on there. Yeah, just a little tight. Well, it's way too tight. So we've got to add to that stack. So I'll get that dialed in and bring you back. All right, I added 2 little steel shims in with the dado set. Let's see how that is now. I think that's going to be just about what we need. Yeah, look at that. It slides right on there. Perfect. I've still got to do the final sand on this panel anyway, so that'll relieve it a little bit. So that should be just perfect. So we're in good shape. Okay, we're ready to cut some grooves. All right, so we're ready to cut some grooves. And I'm going to reference on all of them. I'm going to reference the same face against the fence. That way we'll have, in case there's any variation in this, where this is centered in the board.
On this bottom style, we can't run the groove clear out to the end, or you would be able to see it. It'd be exposed. We have a hole here. So I have to actually start the dado short, and I have to end it short as well. So I'm going to just drop it down on there and then push it to where I know I have to stop, and then hold it up there. So basically I just need a line across here so I can see where I need to stop. I'm going to stop somewhere about there. I'll mark a line on there. Same thing at this end. I need it to stop somewhere, or start somewhere there. So it'll start there, and then it will end here. And I have a mark on my saw. Actually, this needs to be adjusted a little bit. So actually no. So the cutting edge ends about here. So I need them to stop right about here. So when that line that I drew on here, I know you probably can't see it, that line lines up with that mark, I know that's where I need to stop. So this isn't critical, the start and stop area, but I want to get it kind of close. So but now this on this bottom style, we can't run the groove clear out to the end, or you would be able to see it. It would be exposed. We have a hole here. So I have to actually start the dado short, and I have to end it short as well. So I'm going to just drop it down on there and then push it to where I know I have to stop, and then hold it up there. So basically I just need a line across here so I can see where I need to stop. I'm going to stop somewhere about there. I'll mark a line on there. Same thing at this end. I need it to stop somewhere, or start somewhere there. So it'll start there, and then it will end here. And I have a mark on my saw. Actually, this needs to be adjusted a little bit. So actually no. So the cutting edge ends about here. So I need them to stop right about here. So when that line that I drew on here, I know you probably can't see it, that line lines up with that mark, I know that's where I need to stop. So this isn't critical, the start and stop areas, but I want to get it kind of close. Like that. Okay. Show you what I meant here. So yeah, see it, I needed it to stop. If I'd continued this all the way out, we'd have a hole out here at the end. We don't want that. So we stopped it there, come across. This one I took a little too far, but that's okay. It will actually stop somewhere in here, wherever the width of the panel. I'll have to just chop anything out with a chisel. So, all right, and now the next one will be that arched panel, that arched style, or rail. That's going to be a challenge. So, okay, so we're gonna. I already set this up and tried it real quick, but we're going to use this as a slot cutting bit in my router table to cut this one. Then it will follow, I can follow the contour with it, and but it's only 1/4 of an inch wide. We need 3/4 of an inch, so we're going to make one pass that way, flip it over, make another pass this way, and then we'll see if we can adjust it up to take out the middle. I don't know for sure, so we'll see what happens here.
Well, see if we can adjust it up. I don't know if I can get how much of that I can get. Actually, it looks like the slot went a little wide on me, but it'll be all right. Try that. Okay, well, it worked. I can't get any deeper than that. This has got a stop bearing on it, and so that's the only depth I can get. That's about 3/8 of an inch, which will be all right. It doesn't have to be the full 3/4 deep, so I could order one, but I don't think it's that necessary actually. So I think we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I think we're okay. I think it got a little wide on me. I think I had the router down just a little too, just like, man, a 64th too much, but it'll be good enough. It'll be a tight enough fit. We'll be fine. So yeah, so I think we're just about ready now to start. We got to contour the panel next. We got to cut the arch on it and rip it to the right width and square up the bottom end, and yeah, so we're getting close. So we'll be putting it together pretty quickly here. All right, so it's time to, frame components are all made up, and it's time to size the panels a little bit here. I did just a real quick dry fit. They're a little tight, so I got to just trim a little off here on the end of this one at least, and maybe the upper panel as well. This is a crosscut sled that allows me to trim a big board like that. And I haven't used it in a while. It's kind of sliding a little rough, but it'll be fine for what we got to do. I just want to make sure I've got a little clearance between the bottom of the door, the bottom of the panel, and the bottom of the groove that it slides into. So, yeah, so we're just gonna cut just about a saw kerf, which is about 1/8 of an inch off of it. And so this thing lines it up and makes sure that the panel is square to the blade, because this sled is square to the blade. So we're just gonna work it in a little bit. Like I say, we don't need much, just a hair. And this door this is a little uneven cut. That was kind of the original cut from the glue line, so shouldn't take much here. That just squared it up. Now I think I'll take maybe a half a saw kerf off now. Ouch. I need to put some wax in that groove. something about like that, I think will be enough. So. All right, so there's pretty much all of our components. This is the bottom door panel, infill panel. That's the top one. You can see the curved top on it. And then we've got our two stiles, and then the upper and lower and middle rail. And yeah, so next we'll do a quick dry fit, make sure everything's actually going together okay, and then if that once I'm satisfied with all of that, then we'll actually do the glue up. Okay, here's a dry fit. Just got it kind of stuck together here. Want to make sure everything was gonna go okay, everything's fit together before we put glue on it and try to put it together, and it looks good. Got some gaps, those will pull together with clamps. I do have to figure out the clamping strategy for this thing. I had to make up some long bar clamps. You can see them here, they're about 10 feet long right now, which I don't need, but they do need to be almost 8 feet long. So I coupled them together, a couple of short ones with long ones to make it up. I've just got to figure out how I'm going to clamp on this arch properly. So I think I'll do a dry run of the clamp setup, and then we'll take it all apart and glue it. Okay, we've got everything laid out here for glue up. Got all the clamps that we'll need. These are just to hold it upright on the bench. These are the bar clamps that we're going to be using. Might even add a couple more, I'm not sure. Here's the door all laid out. We've got to, this will only be glued up in the places where the framework joins. So here to here, here to here, right there, that center rail will be glued into the side rail, the stiles, and the same thing up at the top. The panel will not have any glue on it because it needs to be able to move with expansion and contraction. Now this door is going to Las Vegas, so it probably won't require, that's not going to be much of an issue, but it can be an issue. And so the panels will not be glued up, and I've cut them enough that there's a little bit of a gap between the edge and the bottom of this groove down here, so that they can move a little bit. They don't ever move lengthwise. Wood doesn't expand lengthwise, only microscopically. Maybe. Yeah, wood doesn't move lengthwise, just maybe microscopically, but it will move dramatically side to across its width due to absorbing moisture from the air. But like I say, Las Vegas, we don't have to worry about that. It's a pretty dry climate. So anyway, so we're ready to start gluing. We'll get the glue out, and I'll set you up here, and we'll get this thing all glued up and ready to go.
All right, we'll start by gluing up the dowels.
for my clamping, it dawned on me I still had the cutoff from cutting this arch. So we're just going to use that. That'll give me a nice square edge at each end to put the clamps on, so I won't have to worry about that. So it should pull together quite nicely here. We're about to find out. So this is a struggle with these long clamps working by myself. Anyway, so there we go. We're glued up. I don't think it needs any more clamps. All the joints pulled up nice and tight. We're looking good here. We'll come back in a little while and scrape that excess, that glue squeeze out off once it kind of gets a little rubbery, and get that all off there. But yeah, all the joints look good. Panels look good. Everything lines up. My little alignment marks are all perfectly aligned. We'll have a little bit of work to do up here, you know, where these stiles meet the rails, but no big deal. And yeah, we are glued up. We're just gonna let it sit and cook, and tomorrow or the next day we'll pop it apart, and then after that, it is on to making the jams and figuring out how in the world I'm going to make this, the curved part of the jam, which I don't think will be very bad. I'm just going to rip some boards into thin sheets and glue them up. I'll build a little form that matches this, and we'll bend them around that. We'll glue them up, we'll stack them up, glue them, and bend them around that form to match that. So yeah, I think we're pretty good shape here. Went pretty smooth. After have to admit, there were a number of trial and error on the assembly. I had to go back and do a little trimming on some tenons, and I had to trim these panels a little bit. They were just a tad too long, and which is fine. That's better than being way too short. So everything went together. I think it's going to be great. On to trim. right, let's take a look here. Yeah, looks pretty good, I'd say. Shot clear down to the bottom here. Yeah, looks pretty nice. It didn't bow up or anything with the clamps. I alternated the clamps, as you probably saw, 2 on one side, 1 on the other. If you concentrate them all on one side, a lot of times the clamps will pull a bow into it, usually because you're tightening them too tight, but I wanted to pull these joints together well. So yeah, so I think the door is all set. So now it's just a matter of getting to work on the jambs. Side jambs will be easy. They'll be straight up to here. Then we've got to create this curved one. As I said yesterday, I think I'll take some of the material that I have and I'll resaw it down into probably 1/8 inch strips, 5 inches wide, and I'll make a form that matches this curve, and we'll coat them up with glue and put them on that form and clamp them in place, let them dry, and it should be fine. And so then we'll just have to figure out the joinery between the side jambs and the head jamb, how I'm going to connect those. Then I've got to make casing to go all the way around it, which is no big deal either. So yeah, so we're in good shape. Moving on to door jambs and casing.